Dust blew in low spirals through the dead grass behind the town. The land had long since surrendered to the drought, curling in on itself like a wounded animal. It had been a dry 5 years, the kind that cracked skin and turned men hard, women too. Willa Monroe knew the type. She'd ridden past them all, the hat-tipping sons of broken Confederates, hollow-eyed ranchers who talked like sermons and drank like devils. Cowboys who called every woman ma'am until the sun went down and their hands turned to claws. She'd learned early to keep her knife close and her heart sealed off. The West didn't mourn girls like her. At 19, Willa was a ranch hand by necessity, not choice. When her father died in a stallion accident and her brothers vanished toward California gold, she kept the land with her mother for 3 bitter years, until cholera made her an orphan and the bank made her a trespasser. She didn't cry when they took the house. She took a horse, a bag of fence nails, her mother's broken locket, and the pistol her father kept in the Bible box. She sold the horse by the river town, bought herself a train ticket as far west as the coins allowed, and stepped off in Ashcliff with a scar on her thigh and no intention of trusting another boot-wearing bastard. Ashcliff was the kind of town that looked dead until dusk. Then it hummed to life with the sound of guitars and poker chips and the whistle of men who thought they owned the night. The saloon, the Copper Spoon, stood at its center like a wound that wouldn't close. Willa didn't go near it for the first month. She earned her meals cleaning rooms at the Hayes Hotel and slept in the storage cellar, wrapped in sacks of rice and silence. That changed when she caught sight of a wanted poster nailed outside the general store. The name on it stopped her heart, Eli Cantrell. Reward, $500. Crimes, horse theft, arson, murder. Eli Cantrell had once been her father's favorite ranch hand. Kind eyes, a fast draw, and a laugh like warm bourbon. She'd been 11 when he rode away in the night after a bar brawl ended with 2 men dead. Her father swore he hadn't done it. That was the last time she saw him. Until now. Willa tore the poster down and kept it under her cot, staring at the image until the ink bled into her dreams. She didn't know if it was hatred or curiosity that pulled her forward, but one night she left the cellar and walked into the Copper Spoon. The air inside smelled of sweat and stale beer. Piano music bled into the clatter of voices, and the light hung low, amber and mean. She took a corner stool and watched the card table near the fireplace. 5 men sat there, all dust-worn and armed. One of them had a scar down the left side of his jaw. Eli. He was older now, gaunter, the stubble thick on his chin and something hollow under his cheekbones. But it was him. He didn't see her that night, but she watched the way he played, never too greedy, never smiling, and always watching. That night she dreamed of her father bleeding out in the barn, calling for someone who never came. The days passed slow and dry. She kept her distance but tracked him from afar, learning his habits. He slept above the smithy, worked odd jobs for drink, and didn't talk unless spoken to. The other men didn't mess with him. He carried a certain silence like a noose. One evening she stepped outside the hotel just as he passed by with a feed sack slung over his shoulder. Their eyes met. He paused. "You lookin' at something?" he asked. Willa held his gaze. "You Eli Cantrell." His jaw tightened. "Depends." "You worked the Monroe Ranch east of Fincher Plains 8 years back." He didn't speak for a long breath. Then, quieter, "I did. I was the girl with the red dog. Her name was Dusty." A flicker of recognition passed through his eyes like a match catching flame. He looked away. "I remember." She nodded once, turned, and walked back inside. That was all it took. The next day he left a tin of jerky on the back step where she sometimes ate breakfast. The day after that, he brought her a repaired pair of gloves, the kind used for fencing. He never asked for anything, he never lingered, but something had shifted, and it followed them like heat off the sand. Then came the fire. It started at the jailhouse. Sheriff Morris, drunk on moonshine and pride, had locked up the wrong man, a half-Comanche boy accused of knifing a white merchant. The boy's uncle lit the building up while Morris slept. Flames caught fast in the wind. Within minutes, half the block was glowing. Will awoke to screaming. Smoke poured through the hotel's floorboards. She scrambled up barefoot, choking on ash. The cellar was a death trap. She ran. Outside, the street was orange with fire. People yelled names, threw water, shot pistols into the air like that would scare off flame. She turned toward the back alley, toward escape. But then she heard it, a woman's scream from the second floor. Mrs. Calder's baby, room 12. She hesitated, one step, two. The heat pressed in like breath on her neck. She moved. Up the stairs, smoke like knives. The hallway was flame. But she saw the door hanging open, the baby wailing. She crossed the room and grabbed the swaddled girl. The smoke wrapped around her. Her knees buckled, something cracked above. She heard her name, didn't know who spoke it. Then hands, strong, rough. She was being pulled. She came to outside, coughing blood. The baby cried nearby, safe. Eli knelt over her, soot on his face. One sleeve burned clear off. "You're a damn fool," he said, voice low. Willa looked up at him through watering eyes. "Thought you were one of the bad ones." He helped her sit. "Guess you ain't the only one people get wrong." And for the first time in years, Willa didn't feel alone. Ashcliff woke under a bruised sky the next morning, its streets blackened, its people ash-covered and half-silent. The fire hadn't taken the whole town, but it had eaten the heart of it. The jailhouse was gone. So was the tailor's. 3 bodies were dragged from the wreckage before noon. No one thanked Willa. No one spoke much at all. In a place like Ashcliff, you survived or you didn't, and either way the sun rose the same. She sat on the back steps of the charred hotel, wrapping a bandage around her wrist where a beam had caught her. Her hands shook with exhaustion, not from the injury, but from something else gnawing at her chest. Footsteps crunched the gravel. She didn't need to look up to know it was him. Eli Cantrell set a battered tin cup beside her. Coffee, black as tar. "You ain't made for dying," he said. "Neither are you," she thought, but said nothing. They sat there while the town creaked awake around them. A wagon rolled past, the wheels groaning under salvaged goods. Somewhere a hammer started up, rebuilding, always rebuilding. Finally she asked, "Why'd you come after me?" He didn't answer at first, took a long drink, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Because you looked back." She frowned. "At what?" "At the fire," he said. "Most folks, they only look at the way out." A crow picked at something in the alley. Willa stared at it, feeling the morning slip away, heavy as a funeral march. Later, when the hotel keeper, Mr. Hayes, told her there was no longer work, too much damage, too few guests, she packed her small bundle without a word. She had nowhere to go, but staying in a town half-burned and twice as bitter was no better. Eli found her by the old watering trough. "There's a cattle drive needin' hands," he said. "Runs north up the Platte. Could use someone don't scare easy." "You vouching for me?" He gave a half shrug, vouchin' for myself. She tightened the roll of her belongings. Dust filled the space between them. She felt it then, the shift of some unseen line she was crossing. "All right," she said. They left before sunset, taking horses borrowed, maybe stolen, from the smithy. Willa didn't ask, and Eli didn't explain. She knew better now than to put her faith in paperwork and promises. The road out of Ashcliff felt endless. The landscape stretched thin, a palette of grays and rusts. Coyotes howled at night, their voices sharp as needles. During the day, the sun beat down until Willa thought her bones might bleach and crumble like old cattle skulls. They didn't talk much. Sometimes Eli would hum under his breath, low songs that Willa couldn't place. She kept her own counsel, watching the land, listening to the wind that seemed to carry every sin westward. 2 days out they crossed paths with the herd. A river of cattle, longhorns mostly, their hides slick with sweat and their tempers mean. Men rode the flanks, weathered and hollow-eyed. The trail boss, a heavy-set man with a broken nose named Dobbs, sized them up with a glance. "You're small," he told Willa. "Small don't slow a hand good with a rope," she shot back. He barked a laugh and tossed her a coiled lariat. "Prove it." She did, took a calf on the run, and roped it so clean the other drovers whooped. Dobbs spat a brown stream into the dirt and nodded. "All right, you ride, both of you." The first night she found herself circling the herd under a silver slice of moon. Eli rode a few lengths away, a steady figure in the dark. Coyotes yapped from the ridges, their hunger as constant as the stars. Somewhere deep in the night, a rustler tried his luck. A shot cracked across the plain. Willa spun her horse without thinking, drawing the pistol from her saddlebag. She caught sight of a figure slinking low near the herd, a rope in hand. Before she could aim, Eli was already there, his horse cutting through the night like a black arrow. He knocked the rustler from his feet with a savage backhand. Another shot fired, but it went wild. Willa galloped in, pistol raised. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she thought it might break free. The rustler scrambled to his knees. A blade flashed in his hand. Eli didn't hesitate. He fired once. The man dropped. Silence swallowed the field. The other drovers came pounding up a minute later, Dobbs cursing and spitting. "Just one," he barked. Eli nodded. "Just one fool." Dobbs kicked the dead man's boot, muttering, "Leave him for the buzzards." Willa didn't move. She stared at Eli, the smoking barrel still loose in his hand, and thought of the old wanted poster crumpled under her cot in Ashcliff. "Murderer," it had said. But this wasn't murder, not tonight. They rode back to camp. Willa's hands didn't stop shaking until dawn. Days blurred together. Dust storms stripped the land raw. One night a stampede broke out when lightning split the sky, and Willa rode until her thighs bled, screaming at the cattle, waving her hat in the air to turn them. Eli was beside her, a grim shadow, and when it was over and half the herd was recovered, he caught her by the shoulder. "You ain't got nothin' to prove," he said. She jerked away. "I'm not proving it to you." His mouth twitched, something almost like a smile. "No," he said, "you're proving it to yourself." They slept rough, ate worse, and lived hour to hour. Willa learned to read the sky better than any map. She learned to mend saddles and shoot on horseback. She learned that Eli had a limp in his right leg, an old injury he never spoke of. She learned that when he thought no one was listening, he spoke Spanish to the horses. She learned that he carried a letter in his coat pocket, worn so thin the paper might dissolve in rain. Once, when he was asleep, she almost reached for it, but something held her back. Some lines, once crossed, could not be uncrossed. The closer they got to the Platte, the harder the men got. Fights broke out over nothing, a glance, a stolen biscuit, a hand laid wrong on a shoulder. Willa stayed sharp, kept to herself, but no amount of distance stopped the trouble that found her one night. It was Cal Anders, one of the drovers, a man who smelled of whiskey and rotted teeth. He cornered her near the remuda under the pretense of asking for spare tack. When she turned her back, he grabbed her, dragging her behind a hay cart. She fought and kicked a bit. He laughed, drunk and mean. Ain't no law out here, girl. The sound of a hammer pulling back stopped him cold. Eli stood 5 feet away, revolver steady, eyes colder than winter bone. "Let her go, Cal," he said. Anders sneered. "You gonna shoot me over a whore?" Eli didn't repeat himself. His hand didn't tremble. Slowly, Anders released her. "You're dead, Cantrell," he spat. "Maybe," Eli said. Willa straightened, blood in her mouth, pride burning hotter than pain. She waited for Eli to say something, to chastise her, to pity her, to say anything at all. But he only turned, gun still drawn, and walked her back to the fire. They didn't speak of it after, not that night, not the next. But something had changed again. Not just between her and Eli. Between Willa and herself. The Platte River shimmered like a knife under the sun. The herd reached its banks in the pale hush of morning, steam rising from the cattle as they drank deep. The air smelled of wet stone and river grass, clean and unfamiliar. The drive was nearly over. Willa stood at the edge of the water, boots in the mud, watching the reflections break with every ripple. Her face, thinner now, stronger, stared back at her for half a breath before the current washed it away. Behind her the camp bustled. The drovers unpacked what gear hadn't been lost to the storm 2 nights prior. One man nursed a broken wrist. Another had gone missing altogether, maybe swallowed by the flood, maybe he left, maybe he didn't have to choose. Willa didn't mourn him. She had no room left for mourning, not for strangers, not for the past. Eli was speaking with Dobbs near the chuck wagon, his voice low, steady. She watched the way the others circled around him now, the weight of his presence no longer something to whisper about. They didn't like him, not exactly, but they respected him. Fear and respect wore the same coat in these parts. He caught her watching and tipped his hat once, slow. She turned away. That night, as the fire cracked low and most of the men slept, Eli approached her with something folded in his hand. The letter. He sat cross-legged beside her and held it out. "You ever wonder what makes a man run?" Willa took the paper without touching it, just looked. Creased a dozen times over, water-stained, smelled faintly of sweat and tobacco. "No," she said, "I wonder what makes him stop." Eli looked at her then, really looked, like he was trying to read something written deep under her skin. "It's from a woman I never married, said she hoped I was dead, said if I ever came back, she'd put the bullet in me herself." Willa didn't flinch. "Did you deserve it?" "I did." She nodded, folded the letter again, and handed it back. "Then why haven't you gone to see her?" "I used to think dying would be easier. And now I don't know what easy looks like." The fire snapped, bright for a moment, then sank back to coals. The river murmured behind them. He didn't leave her that night. He sat until the stars shifted west, both of them silent, breathing the same cold air, holding truths that couldn't be undone. The morning brought thunder. Not from the sky, but from hooves. Dobbs rode hard into camp, face pale, hat gone. Riders, he panted, 10 of 'em, armed. Outlaws, Willa asked, heart tightening. Not exactly. They came from the south, kicking up dust like a war band. Men in long coats and saddle masks, rifles slung loose. At their front rode a woman, tall, dark-skinned, her braid tied in a silver ring that caught the light. She reined in just beyond the herd, lifted her hand. I'm here for Eli Cantrell. Every head turned. Eli stepped forward, not hurried, not afraid. I figured you might come, Ruth. The woman, Ruth, tilted her head. You should have stayed in your grave. I've had trouble staying buried. Willa looked between them, something unspoken passed, not hatred, something older, colder. Tell her what you did, Ruth said. Eli's jaw tightened. I killed her brother. No, Ruth snapped. You murdered him in his sleep. The camp rustled. Men shifted their grips on rifles. One or two backed away entirely. Why? Willa asked quietly. Eli looked at her like a man staring into the gallows shadow. Because he lit the fire that killed your father. Everything stopped. Willa's breath caught. What? He and 2 others burned the barn that night. Thought it'd drive your family off the land. Your old man surprised them. They ran. I hunted him down. Ruth spat in the dirt, and then ran yourself. Eli said nothing. Willa felt her legs weaken. The old scar on her thigh ached like it remembered. The pistol in her satchel suddenly felt heavier than iron. You let me think you vanished, she said. Her voice was too calm, too clear. I did, he replied, out of shame. And now. He met her gaze. Now I don't want to die without you knowing. The air rippled with silence. Ruth raised her rifle. Willa stepped forward. No, she said, not here. Ruth's eyes narrowed. You want justice, girl. Let me give it to you. I want truth, Willa said, and I want to choose what to do with it. She walked toward Eli, slow, measured. He didn't move. When she reached him, she drew her knife. Held it out, hilt first. This is the blade I was gonna use the next time a man tried to lie to me. He didn't speak. She turned, holding the knife up. He saved me. He's not good, but he's mine to reckon with. Ruth's men muttered. One spit in the dirt. But Ruth nodded once, grim. We ride at dawn, she said. And they did. Later, Eli sat beside the fire, shoulders low. Willa didn't sit. She stood over him. You should have told me from the start. I thought it'd drive you off. You were right. He looked up. You still leaving? No, she said, not yet. She took the letter from his coat where he'd left it, and this time she opened it. Inside were only 6 words. If you come back, bring mercy. She folded it again, slid it into her shirt pocket. You ever wonder what makes a woman stay? She asked. He didn't answer. Neither did she. The cattle drive ended in Fremont, where the river met the rail lines and the dust gave way to iron and steam. The herd was sold off in pairs and threes, then carted eastward toward stockyards and slaughter. The drovers drank themselves blind that night, their pockets fat and futures uncertain. Willa did not join them, neither did Eli. She found herself staring at a world that moved too fast. The train yard hissed with smoke and whistles, filled with men who didn't look at her twice. She could disappear here. She thought about it, about selling the pistol, the saddle, the past, starting clean. But clean had never been an option, not really. Not with Eli walking behind her like a shadow she couldn't shake, and not with the weight of what he'd done beating inside her chest like a second heart. They took a room above a butcher's shop, one bed, no questions asked. Willa slept with the knife under her pillow, not because she didn't trust him, because she didn't trust herself. He never touched her, never tried. Just lay on his side, back turned, breath shallow like he was waiting for something to break. Days passed. She took work in the stables outside town, mucking stalls and calming skittish horses. It was dull work, but it kept her hands busy. Eli found work unloading freight, and when it suited him, gambling at the riverboat dock where the men didn't ask about scars or history. He brought home food, sometimes whiskey, sometimes nothing at all. The letter stayed in her coat. Some nights they didn't speak. Others they talked until the sky lightened and both of them fell asleep mid-sentence, too tired to dream. Willa learned the slope of his shoulders, the places his voice cracked, the rhythm of his stride. She learned what made him flinch, a child's cry, gunshots, the scent of burning hair. She said nothing about it. He never offered explanation. One morning, a telegram arrived. It was short, from Ruth. Greenridge next full moon. Bring him, or I come instead. She read it twice, burned it in the stove. When Eli came in that night, blood on his knuckles and jaw tight, she handed him a tin of beans and said nothing. He ate in silence. Then, she found you. She never stopped looking, Willa said. He didn't argue. The road to Greenridge was longer than the map suggested. They rode double on a borrowed mare, the snow coming early that year. It covered the road like an old sheet hiding a broken floor. Trees lined the hills, dark with frost, and the air felt like breath drawn through a cracked tooth. Willa said little, Eli said less. The world around them said nothing at all. Greenridge wasn't a town, not really. Just 4 buildings clustered around an abandoned chapel with a bell that hadn't rung in 20 years. Ruth stood waiting in front of the church, dressed in a long duster and wide-brimmed hat, rifle across her back. They dismounted. Ruth didn't move. Her men weren't there this time, just her and the cold. Eli stepped forward. You still want it. She stared at him. You think it's about want. He held out his revolver grip first. You can end it. I won't stop you. She looked at the gun like it was a dead thing. No, she said, that's too easy. She reached into her coat and drew out a coin, tossed it into the snow. Face, you walk free. Tails, I take your shooting hand. Eli didn't flinch. You trust fate now. No, Ruth said, but I trust myself to honor the outcome. She flipped it high. The coin spun in a silver blur and landed edge first in the snow, half buried. No face, no tail. They all stared. Willa stepped forward, pulled the coin free, held it up. It was scarred, scratched, the design worn near to nothing. No klein choice, she said. Nope, Ruth agreed. And then she turned and walked away. Willa watched her go until she vanished between the pines. They stayed in Greenridge that night, sleeping on the chapel floor. Snow fell through the roof in soft drifts. Eli didn't sleep, neither did she. You think that was mercy? He asked just before dawn. Willa stared at the ceiling, the wooden ribs of it like a cage. No, she said, I think it was surrender. To what? To time, to what she's become, to what you are now. He looked over at her. And what am I? She closed her eyes. A man who never stopped running from fire. They returned to Fremont by different roads. Willa took the river trail, alone. She needed distance, to breathe in the cold without someone else's guilt choking the space between them. She didn't cry, she didn't look back. Back in town, she found work at the telegraph office, reading wires for the men who couldn't spell and sending messages across states like secrets on strings. It was clean work, dry work, paid in silver, not promises. Weeks passed, Eli didn't return. She tried not to notice. One night, a stranger came in with a bullet wound in his side, half frozen, muttering her name. You Willa Monroe? He asked. She nodded slowly. He handed her a bundle wrapped in oilskin. Inside was Eli, revolver. And this? She asked. The man winced. He said to give it to you if he didn't come back. She stared at the weapon. Where is he? West Wyoming Territory. Said he was going to find the last of the men who lit that fire. Didn't say more. She took the bundle, set it on the shelf. What happened to him? The man didn't answer. She didn't ask again. 2 weeks later, she bought a horse. Rode out before the sun could ask where she was going. Not because she forgave him. Not because she loved him. But because some debts weren't meant to be passed on. Some fires, even after burning through everything, still left a single, smoldering ember. And Willa Monroe intended to carry it all the way west. The Wyoming Territory welcomed no one. It stood vast and wind-bitten, a high, cruel land that broke wild horses and men alike. Snow lay in the gulches like white ash. Pines climbed the slopes like sentinels, dark and ancient. Willa rode into it with her collar up and her jaw tight, carrying nothing but Eli's revolver, 2 names, and the last trail he left behind. It took weeks to find it. A ranch hand in Laramie remembered a tall man with a limp who'd passed through asking about a fella named Deeks. A saloon girl in Medicine Bow said the same. Both pointed her west, toward the high passes near the Snake Fork Basin, where the law didn't reach and old scores waited like rusted bear traps. The second name came harder, Wade Tolliver. The third man from the barn that burned long vanished into the cracks of the frontier. Eli had never spoken his name, but Ruth had. Willa remembered. She wrote it in the margin of her journal, then scratched it out until the page tore. Each town she passed through, the snow grew deeper, her horse thinned, her hands cracked, but the trail didn't vanish. She found the first man in a cabin sunk low near a frozen creek. Deeks was older now, gray-bearded, hunched, skin yellow, with some sickness too stubborn to kill him. He didn't recognize her, but he recognized the gun. That his? He asked, voice rasping. She didn't answer. He laughed once, bitter and thin. I figured one of you would find me eventually." Willa didn't speak. She set the revolver on the table between them. "He ain't dead," she said. Deeks blinked. "Then why ain't he here?" "He didn't think he'd make it." The man reached for the gun like he might use it, but his fingers shook too much to grip it. He let his hand drop. "I never meant for your father to die. I thought he'd be gone, thought the barn would scare him off." "He burned alive," Willa said. "My mother died 3 years later from what she breathed in. I buried her in the same dress she scrubbed the soot out of." Deeks looked at her then, and something in him sagged. "You think I ain't carried that weight. I think you let him carry it for you." She took the revolver, stood. "Do it then," he whispered. "I won't stop you." But she turned and walked out. The door hung open behind her. She didn't hear him cry, but she knew he did. Tolliver took longer. She found his name listed in a registry near Snake Fork under a different alias. Bought land 6 years back, married twice. Both wives gone, the last buried under the name of natural causes. The cabin sat on a rise overlooking the frozen basin, big enough for cattle, but none stood in the fields. A barn with a padlocked door, a smokehouse with no smoke, and a front porch where a man with a long beard and a shotgun waited with a dog that didn't bark. "You lookin' for someone?" he asked. Willa dismounted slow, cold in her bones now, her breath white. "I'm here for what you owe." He frowned, stepped off the porch. "I don't owe you a damn thing." She pulled the revolver from her coat, didn't raise it. "Eli Cantrell says you do." The name hit him like a fist. He froze. Then slowly he nodded. "He alive." She didn't blink, not yet. A long silence passed. The wind moved through the trees. "He said he'd come for me," Tolliver said. "I came instead." She tossed something at his feet, a half-burnt coin, scarred to near nothing. He looked down at it. When he looked back up, she had the gun raised. But she didn't fire. "You built a life out of his ashes," she said. "You buried what you did under new names and wives and land you don't deserve, but it's over now." He took a step forward. "You think shooting me fixes it?" Willa didn't speak. "You gonna carry that?" he asked, "or let it carry you?" She shot the dog instead, not to kill, just to scare. The animal yelped and bolted, limping into the trees. Tolliver flinched, hands going up. "Next time," she said, "it won't be the dog." She left him shaking. Left the door open, left the coin behind. Left the past bleeding in the snow. 2 days later, she found Eli. He was holed up in a cabin north of Snake Fork, fever-racked, coughing blood, alone. Willa kicked the door in. He blinked up at her, gaunt and gray around the mouth. "You didn't have to come," he rasped. "You knew I would." She boiled water, made tea, cleaned the wound in his side, gunshot, not fresh. Infection had crept in, slow and ugly. He grimaced with every touch but didn't stop her. "You get them?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, but they know I was there." He nodded once, like that was enough. "They afraid. Good men don't fear ghosts. And bad ones. Bad ones run." She stayed 3 days, long enough for the fever to break, long enough to see he might survive. Then she packed. Eli didn't argue, just watched her from the bed, eyes still hollow. "I'm going east," she said. "Land in Kansas needs hands, they pay fair." "You want me to follow?" She looked at him. "I want you to try." She rode out in the half-light, sun catching on frost like sparks. Didn't look back. Not this time. Months passed. She worked a cattle station near Abilene, quiet and flat, with fences that stretched for miles and a sky that didn't weigh so heavy. She earned her keep, kept her knife sharp, wrote no letters, sent no wires. But one day a rider came up the trail, limped a little, rode a tired horse. He didn't speak when he dismounted. Just walked up, took off his hat, and waited. Willa crossed the yard, hands at her sides. "I didn't think you would," she said. "I didn't either," he said. She looked at him, really looked. Not the man she feared. Not the man she followed. A man who had bled, burned, run, and still stood. "I'm not yours," she said. "I know," he replied. "But I'll ride with you," she said. He smiled just barely, "Even if the fire comes again." Willa narrowed her eyes. "If it does," she said, "let it try me."